She sent one last text before vanishing into the night. A simple message, almost home, typed at exactly 11:47 p.m., but she never made it. Hours later, her car was found abandoned on a desolate stretch of road, the driver's door wide open, her purse still in the passenger seat. No signs of a struggle, no witnesses, just the eerie silence of an empty road and a growing list of unanswered questions. 22-year-old Melissa Carter wasn't the kind of person who just disappeared. She was a senior at Redwood University studying forensic psychology, ironically, fascinated by criminal minds. She had a tight-knit group of friends, a steady boyfriend, and a close relationship with her family. Melissa wasn't reckless. She never took unnecessary risks. She wasn't the type to drive off into the night without telling someone where she was going. On October 14th, everything about her routine was normal. She had spent the evening at her best friend Emily Garrison's apartment, watching movies, ordering takeout, laughing over college stress. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then, at 11:30 p.m., she said she had to go. Her apartment was only a 10-minute drive away. She hugged Emily goodbye, stepped out into the chilly night air, and got into her car. 11 minutes later, she was gone. Melissa's last text message was sent at 11:47 p.m. Almost home. Her roommate, Chloe Ramirez, saw the message but didn't think much of it. She figured Melissa had parked and would be walking through the door any second. But 10 minutes passed, then 20, then an hour. By 1 a.m., Melissa still hadn't returned. Calls went straight to voicemail. Texts were left on read. At 1:45 a.m., Chloe called Melissa's parents. By 2:30 a.m., her father, Greg Carter, was driving the route Melissa would have taken. And that's when he saw it. Melissa's gray Honda Civic sat motionless on the side of Crescent Road, a dimly lit highway leading out of town. The driver's side door was open, the engine still running. Her purse, phone, and keys were inside, but Melissa was gone. Greg dialed 911 without hesitation. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars arrived, their red and blue lights cutting through the darkness. Officers approached the car carefully, scanning for any signs of struggle. There was no blood, no broken glass, no footprints in the dirt. Melissa's phone was unlocked, her last opened app a GPS route home, but it ended right there, at the exact spot where her car sat. Something had stopped her, or someone. By morning, the FBI was involved. A young woman vanishing without a trace was an immediate red flag. Detectives interviewed family and friends. Has Melissa been acting strange? No. Did she have any enemies? Not that anyone knew of. Was she involved in anything secretive? Nothing suggested it. Surveillance footage from Emily's apartment confirmed Melissa had left at 11:30 p.m. alone, heading towards her car. But the Crescent Road cameras? They were mysteriously offline that night. It was almost as if someone had planned for this moment. Did she pull over willingly? Maybe she stopped for a hitchhiker? But Melissa wasn't the type to pick up strangers. Did someone flag her down? A fake emergency? A staged accident? Did she know her abductor? Was there someone waiting for her on that road? As investigators combed the area, they found something chilling. A single shoe, Melissa's, lying in the grass 20 feet from the car. It looked like it had been torn off. That evening, as Melissa's disappearance made local headlines, a call came in to the Redwood Police Department. A woman's voice, frantic, whispered into the receiver. I saw her. She wasn't alone. Before dispatch could ask anything else, the line went dead. Melissa Carter had vanished in less than 2 minutes. No struggle, no clear sign of an abduction. Just an open car door, a missing shoe, and a witness who claimed she wasn't alone. But who was with her? And why did they make sure she never made it home? The first 48 hours in a missing persons case are the most critical. That's when the trail is fresh, when evidence is still waiting to be found. But by the time the sun rose over Crescent Road, Melissa Carter was already slipping through the cracks. There were no signs of a struggle, no messages asking for help, just an open car door and an empty road. Investigators knew one thing for certain. She hadn't vanished on her own. The Redwood Police Department wasted no time. By 8 a.m., a full-scale search was underway. Officers, volunteers, and K-9 units fanned out across the area, combing through the thick woods lining Crescent Road. Drones scanned from above. Search dogs followed Melissa's scent. Helicopters hovered low, their spotlights cutting through the morning fog. For hours they searched, and for hours they found nothing. Then, just after noon, an officer's radio crackled to life. "I've got something about a mile up the road." It was a piece of torn fabric, caught on a barbed wire fence, fluttering in the wind. It was light blue, the same color as the hoodie Melissa had been wearing that night. The search shifted immediately. If Melissa had been taken this way, she might still be nearby. But as the hours dragged on, the trail went cold. Detectives turned their focus to Melissa's car. Every inch was dusted for fingerprints, scanned with UV lights, checked for the smallest trace of DNA. Her purse was untouched. No signs of robbery. Her keys were in the ignition. She hadn't planned to stop for long. Her phone was unlocked, but there were no unusual texts, no outgoing calls. Then, they checked the passenger seat and noticed something strange. There was a fast food wrapper, still fresh, from a place that wasn't near Emily's apartment or Melissa's route home. Someone else had been in that car. When someone goes missing, police always start with the closest people in their life. And for Melissa, that meant two people. Emily Garrison, her best friend, the last person to see her. Jake Reynolds, her boyfriend of 3 years. Emily was devastated. She'd spent the night pacing, calling Melissa's phone, hoping it was all a misunderstanding. "She was fine when she left," she told detectives. "I swear, she didn't seem scared or nervous. She was just..." Melissa, Emily's alibi checked out. She had been home the entire night, watching Netflix, texting her other friends. She was cleared. Then detectives turned to Jake. He hadn't called Melissa that night. In fact, he hadn't spoken to her since the morning before. "She was busy with school," he explained. "We were gonna talk tomorrow." Detectives pressed him further. Had they fought? Was Melissa planning to break up with him? Jake hesitated. "I mean, things weren't perfect, but we weren't breaking up. I loved her." Jake had an alibi. He'd been at home playing video games with his roommates. But something about his answers felt off. And then, detectives checked his phone records. At 11:49 p.m., exactly 2 minutes after Melissa's last text, Jake had called her 3 times in a row. She never answered. With no security cameras on Crescent Road, detectives checked the next best thing: gas stations, traffic lights, convenience stores along the route. They found nothing unusual until they looked at the footage from a 24-hour diner 5 miles away. At 12:02 a.m., barely 15 minutes after Melissa's disappearance, a dark-colored pickup truck was seen speeding down the road, the same road Melissa had been on. The truck ran a red light, swerving as it went. But more importantly, through the passenger window, the camera captured something inside the truck. a flash of blue fabric. With no body, no ransom note, and no confirmed suspect, investigators were running out of time. But then, a new witness came forward. An elderly man named Harold Dempsey had been driving down Crescent Road that night, and he had seen something chilling. "I thought it was just kids messing around at first," he told police. "But there was this girl. She was struggling with someone, and then she was gone." Detectives pressed for details. "She was near the passenger side of a truck. It was dark, but I saw it slow down. She was standing there 1 second, and then she wasn't." The truck. The same truck seen on the diner's security footage. But Harold hadn't seen the driver's face, and he hadn't been able to see if the girl had been forced inside, or if she had gone willingly. Melissa Carter didn't just vanish. Someone was with her that night. Someone who picked her up or forced her inside that truck. But who was behind the wheel? And why did they make sure she never made it home? The truck was the key. It was the only lead investigators had. An unidentified vehicle captured on a grainy security camera, speeding through the night just minutes after Melissa Carter vanished. Witnesses saw her near a truck. The same truck was caught running a red light, but no license plate, no clear view of the driver. Just the knowledge that whoever was inside knew exactly what happened to her. With no plate number, detectives had to cast a wide net. They reached out to state police, highway patrol, and local body shops, searching for any reports of a dark-colored pickup truck that matched the one in the footage. Traffic cameras were checked. Toll booth records were analyzed. Every auto shop within 50 miles was contacted. By day 3, the case had made national news. Then a break came, one that would send chills through the entire town. A gas station clerk, 30 miles away, called the tip line. "I saw that truck," he told investigators. "It was here the night she disappeared." The gas station's security cameras were better than the diner's. The footage showed the pickup truck pulling in at 12:37 a.m., roughly 45 minutes after Melissa vanished. The driver never got out. Instead, a passenger door opened, and for a brief second, a figure was visible inside. The footage was too blurry to confirm if it was Melissa, but something else stood out. The driver's right hand was bleeding. He grabbed a handful of napkins from the dashboard, pressed them against his palm, and sped off. The cashier remembered him. He looked nervous, kept checking his mirrors. "I thought maybe he was drunk or something." Detectives enhanced the footage. The truck had a small dent on the rear fender, a specific decal on the back window. They had something to work with. With this new footage, investigators cross-referenced DMV records for all dark-colored pickup trucks registered within a 100-mile radius. The decal? It was from a local auto repair shop, a place called Miller's Garage. A list of customers was pulled, and one name immediately stood out. Ethan Brooks, 34 years old, lived 20 miles from Redwood. A mechanic, had a criminal record: burglary, assault, and the most disturbing part, he had once dated a girl who looked eerily similar to Melissa Carter. A girl who had filed a restraining order against him and later moved out of state. By day 5, detectives were outside Ethan Brooks' house, a small, rundown trailer on the edge of town. His truck was parked in the driveway. Same dent, same decal, but something was different. The passenger seat was missing. When officers knocked, Ethan answered with a smile. "Can I help you, officers?" They showed him the gas station footage. He barely flinched. That could be any truck. Then they pointed to the blood on his hand in the video. "I cut myself at work that day," His confidence was unnerving. "You can check my truck. I got nothing to hide." They did, and at first it seemed clean. Then, an officer checked under the floor mat and found a tiny clump of long brown hair. Melissa had brown hair. The hair sample was rushed to the lab. Within 48 hours, the results came back. It was a match. Melissa had been inside Ethan Brooks' truck. And then, something even more chilling. Under blacklight, a faint stain was found on the passenger door handle. Blood. Someone had grabbed that door hard. As detectives built their case against Ethan Brooks, an anonymous tip came in. A woman's voice, shaking. "Check the woods near Old Creek Road. There's something there." Then the line went dead. Old Creek Road was an abandoned hiking trail, about 15 miles from where Melissa's car was found. Detectives rushed to the location, and deep in the woods, hidden behind a pile of branches, they found it. A shredded, light blue hoodie, Melissa's hoodie, and next to it, a single gold earring, half buried in the dirt. The kind Melissa always wore. The evidence was mounting. The truck was identified. The hair was a match. And now, pieces of Melissa's clothing were showing up miles from where she was last seen. But where was she? And was she still alive? The woods were silent. No birds. No wind. Just the steady crunch of boots against damp earth as detectives pushed forward, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. Then one of them stopped. Just ahead, partially buried under a tangle of fallen branches, was something small and metallic. An earring, and next to it torn fabric, pale blue, soaked from the recent rain. It was Melissa's hoodie. But the deeper they searched, the more disturbing the discoveries became. The discovery at Old Creek Road shifted the case into high gear. K-9 units were deployed. Search teams scoured the woods, mile by mile. Aerial drones scanned the landscape, looking for disturbed soil. Melissa had been here. The question was, where was she now? Then, another breakthrough. A hunter, walking his usual trail just 2 miles from the hoodie's location, reported something odd. "Last week, I saw a guy in a truck. He wasn't hunting, just sitting there watching the trees. What did he look like? Didn't see his face. But I remember the truck. It had a dent on the back, the same dent detectives had linked to Ethan Brooks. He had been here." With more evidence mounting, detectives pushed harder on Ethan Brooks. They secured a warrant to search his house, his garage, and his property. What they found was chilling. A knife wiped clean, but with microscopic traces of blood in the grooves of the handle. A set of handcuffs in his toolbox, and buried beneath a pile of old tires, Melissa's missing cell phone. It was smashed, but the SIM card was intact. And when investigators recovered the last GPS data, it pinged to one final location. The coordinates pointed to a small hunting cabin, deep in the forest, an area so remote it wasn't even on most maps. Detectives moved in immediately. The cabin was abandoned, but inside, it told a terrifying story. The walls were lined with photographs of women. Some were from old missing persons cases. Some were of Melissa. The bed was unmade. Someone had been there recently. And on the floor, in the dust, fresh footprints. They had just missed someone. And then, near the back wall, a trapdoor. A hidden basement. Detectives pried the door open. The air was damp, stale. A single bulb flickered overhead. And in the corner, a wooden chair with ropes on the arms and legs. Next to it, a small pile of clothing. Melissa's clothing. But there was no sign of her. Just a final, haunting clue. A message scrawled on the wall in red marker. She was here. Now she's gone. Ethan Brooks had secrets, dark ones. But as investigators closed in, one thing became painfully clear. Melissa had been alive, trapped inside that cabin. And now she was gone. Had she escaped? Or had something far worse happened in the hours before detectives arrived? The final answer lay somewhere just beyond the trees, waiting to be uncovered. The cabin held its secrets in the dust, in the ropes tied to the chair, in the eerie message scrawled across the wall. Melissa had been here, but now she was gone. The evidence told detectives one thing. Whoever had taken her had been watching, waiting, staying one step ahead. The real question was, had they run out of time? Or was Melissa still alive, somewhere beyond the trees, waiting to be found? The hidden basement changed everything. Melissa had been there, alive. But how recently? Detectives analyzed footprints in the dust. Some were fresh. Someone had left the cabin within the past 24 hours. Then, a crucial piece of evidence surfaced, tire tracks just beyond the clearing. They were deep, recent, leading away from the cabin. The pattern matched the tires on Ethan Brooks' truck. He had been there, but had he taken Melissa with him? Or had she escaped? Then, a voice crackled over the radio. "We have movement on Route 16. Black pickup truck." Matching the description, Ethan Brooks was on the move. Patrol cars swarmed the back roads, tailing the truck as it barreled toward the state highway. Ethan was driving fast, too fast for someone who wasn't running from something. Lights flashed, sirens wailed. Ethan refused to stop. Then, he made a sudden turn onto an abandoned logging road, disappearing into the dense forest. Detectives knew, if he got out of sight, they might lose him for good. The chase went off-road. Dust clouds, twisting paths, a tense pursuit through the trees. Then his truck hit something. Hard. The front tires slammed into a ditch, throwing the vehicle sideways. The driver's door swung open. Ethan jumped out and ran. The woods swallowed him, but officers weren't far behind. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Dogs barked in the distance. Then a noise, a sharp rustling behind a cluster of trees. Ethan had tripped over a fallen branch, scrambling to get up. "Don't move. Hands where we can see them." He hesitated, breathing hard. Then, a final, chilling whisper slipped from his lips. "You're too late." Officers tackled him. Handcuffs snapped shut. But the question remained, what did he mean? Back at the station, Ethan refused to talk. But detectives had his truck. And inside they found it. A set of keys. One of them, labeled shed. There was only one place left to search. A small, rusted-out structure on Ethan's property, tucked behind overgrown brush. The moment officers broke the lock, they knew. Melissa was inside. The room was cold, damp, silent, and in the corner a figure. She was alive, barely. Melissa Carter was shaking, weak, covered in bruises. She had been there for days, surviving on small amounts of water, chained to a metal pipe. The moment she saw officers, her breath caught, her body sagged. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. She had survived. Ethan Brooks was charged with kidnapping, attempted murder, and multiple counts of assault. Melissa was taken to the hospital, where she began the long road to recovery. Investigators discovered evidence linking Ethan to 2 other unsolved missing persons cases. The cabin, the photographs, the hidden basement. It was all part of a dark obsession. And if detectives had been just a few hours later, Melissa wouldn't have made it out. But she did, against all odds. And when she finally spoke, her first words were chilling. "I never thought anyone would find me,